everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And I'm Adam.
And today we are reviewing the long-awaited, for some...
Ain't that the truth?
You weren't waiting
sequel
for this
to Avatar, Avatar: The Way of Water, James Cameron's first movie since Avatar, I believe, and at least like 5, 7, 10 years in the making. I've heard various...
I thought he did Paddington too.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That would blow my mind.
That would be unbelievable.
If I didn't know that and then learned that James Cameron directed Paddington 2, that would like change my entire outlook on cinema. I wouldn't even know how to handle that at all. But yes, we're talking about Avatar: The Way of Water. Adam, would you like to tell people what it's about?
I would indeed, once I pull it up. Jake Sully lives with his newfound family formed in the extrasolar moon Pandora. Once a familiar threat returns to finish what was previously started, Jake must work with Neytiri and the army of the Na'vi race to protect their home. So there's a pop-up that happened in the middle of that. Thanks, IMDb, jackwagon.
Said you will not get a clean reading of this.
No,
on
I can't read apparently because it's familiar versus family. So
okay,
watching too much Fast and Furious recently. It's got to be it.
Yeah. So also, first off, this will be a spoiler review. There's not a ton to spoil here, but we will discuss the ending a little bit. So if you haven't seen it yet, maybe watch the movie and then come back. Or if you don't care, you can just hang around too. Doesn't matter to us.
Hey, if you don't want to wait 3 hours and 12 minutes to know how it ends, just keep listening.
We'll get you out of here in hopefully a cool 20.
Yeah.
25 if we're unlucky.
Yeah. But yeah, a very, very long movie is the other thing I was going to say. Well, the spoilers, and then this movie is insanely long. And it's one of those things I think where they put so much effort into how this looks that there's a part of me that thinks just use a bunch of it. Look at everything you did. Visually.
Yeah. How are you not impressed by some of the shots?
Right. It would be a shame to just cut out another hour and 50 minutes of this or something. But at the same time, the writing and the story here don't necessarily warrant 3+ hours of runtime.
Yeah.
I mean, not even necessarily. They don't. But continue.
What I was gonna say is it's a lot. I
thought I'd be nice at the beginning, and then we'd
tear it apart. I think Avatar 1, after it came out, people just reduced it to it's space Pocahontas, and it's very predictable.
Dances with Wolves.
Same stuff. This movie suffers in the same way from that. Everything is predictable and it follows a very, very standard format that you know what's coming, you know what to expect. The story beats are all laid out right in front of you, and children can figure out what's happening next or what's about to happen.
Well, because there's so much characters explaining out loud exactly what's happening and what they're feeling. But anyways, I'll let you continue.
Yeah. So it obviously suffers from that, but we do spend a ton of time with each and every character, every child character in the movie. And I think that is obviously going to be setting us up for number 3. But we give 20 minutes to each kid, basically.
So here's a question I have for you, because you did just mention that we spend a lot of time with individual children. Can you tell me more than one of their names?
Yeah.
Really? Because I can't.
Spider was the
he's the living kid. He's kind of the one that
Took is the smallest child, and then Kiri is Sigourney Weaver's character.
Look at him go. I could not have done this. I posed a challenge that I was not capable of.
Yeah. I also figured this would happen where I got involved in the movie. We took my girlfriend and her 2 brothers to this. And we were very much involved in trying to pay attention, and because we just watched Avatar, a rewatch of Avatar 2 days ago, 3 days ago before we went, to just keep it fresh and make sure we knew exactly.
I think a lot of people did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were very involved in actively watching instead of just being all right, let's see what you got. So I thought I was going to be a little bit higher on this movie than maybe you guys would be. So I tried to pay attention to some of the things and tried to keep up with what was going on. And then we talked about it after. So
Yeah.
so I'm probably a little bit higher, but that's why I paid attention. It
think-
was like I'll try to remember who was who and who was
Yeah.
what was going to
Yeah.
happen.
And like you mentioned, I think this is setting up. There's going to be 3 more movies. James Cameron has said
they've
at
already
least.
finished filming 3, and I read there are 9 hours of footage for
Oh,
that. They
sweet
filmed.
God.
They did a Peter Jackson. They filmed 2 and 3 at the same time, and then
Okay.
I don't think 4 and 5 have technically been greenlit yet. I think they need to see how this one does, and then maybe subsequently how 3 does.
Okay.
But these take a long time, so they might be waiting. I feel like a decision would have to come after seeing how Way of Water does at the box office.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because if you
Mhm.
wait until the 3rd one comes out, then we're just gonna have to wait like another 5 years for 4.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
more.
And at that
So-
point, who's going to care?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we should start with the positives, which I definitely think we can all agree is the way that the movie looks.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of just undeniable. I mean, I just saw it in 2D. I don't know if either one of you saw it in 3D. Okay,
No.
yeah, I didn't either. But yeah, I mean, it's James Cameron world building with basically like a blank check budget, and I mean, the world building was really cool. Like all the water stuff. I mean, any part of it looked cool. It looked fantastic, and like just the way that they moved around in the water, and just like the little stylistic touches that he does. Like he knows how to make a movie visually appealing, and I can safely say that this movie is definitely that. And even like we recently reviewed is it Strange World, the Disney movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, like the only almost all the budget clearly went to how it looks, and like that like looked good, but this like looked good in a way where you could like feel it, and like he knows how to
Yeah.
connect like emotions and kind of get you engaged with this environment that looks really cool instead of just admiring how it looks. Like the way the waves are like crashing on the rocks, and like the way that they dive into the water and meet up with their little like amphibious, and like then they're like going to get like, it's all these little touches that make you really just like feel like, oh, I just want to like go swimming on that beach right now.
Yeah. There's so much, like the motion capture for this movie was incredible. I often throughout this movie I was thinking like, how did they film this? Like, because it's clearly actors like on a stage doing something, and all of the CGI elements that are around it, where it certainly wasn't just like your normal standard like monster in a CGI monster, where it's like a head, a green screen head with some motion capture balls on a stick, like doing stuff. There was a lot of like actual movement and like jumping over things, jumping over like real sets, and the interspersing that with the actual like the shots of different flying creatures or swimming creatures or just the environment itself. So I spent a lot of time going like, how the hell did they get this shot? Because piecing all that together had to take apparently 10 fucking years. So
Yeah. I mean, I think I didn't see the first Avatar until like 3 months ago.
Yeah, true.
I never saw it when it came out in theaters. Just kind of, I don't know. It was like so hyped. I was just like, that can't be
We
good.
were like seniors in high school too.
Yeah,
Very easy
it was
to be
like
I'm not-
prime.
yeah.
Yep.
Better than that.
And even seeing it now, like this year, like back in 2009, I could tell and like appreciate the visuals of everything and like all the detail and like just the technology that went into making it look like that. But there aren't that many moments in the first one where I felt like I want to go there or like pause it on this shot. Like this is stunning to me.
Yeah.
This, all the water stuff here is just stunningly rendered.
Yeah.
And
Like,
I mean, and that's where I do think I like this a little bit better than the first one, just because I don't feel any need to ever watch the first Avatar again in my life. And while I highly doubt I will watch this entire movie again, there are parts of this that I absolutely want to revisit once it's on like Disney Plus or something. Like, just even though I think like the writing is not really very good at all, and there's a lot of clunky storytelling in that middle part when they're just kind of getting to know the reef people.
Yeah.
It's so cool looking that I just want to look at it again.
Yeah.
And then even leading into like the whole last like 45 minutes with that like crazy battle, like the first, that's kind of split into like two distinct parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
The first part of that is also just amazing.
This is what people experienced with Avatar 1, just like times 1,000, because nobody had seen anything like this before, and it was like the first big 3D movie, you know.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the big draw of this franchise so far, is like it just looks too good to pass up seeing.
Yeah, and I think now we're going to kind of get into some spoilers, or I'm going to say something spoilery, so just a fair warning. But I think, maybe my favorite part was when Tultun like gets up on the boat and just starts fucking everything, like just like wrecking that whole boat, and then that like leads to the attack. Like that was probably like my favorite, and it's a little Free Willy-ish, but like it totally like
it's cool though.
It was cool,
That's
and
dope.
also I liked his character. I think his name is Tultun, right? Or is that the species?
Tultuk or something like that? I
don't know anybody's
it's not
name,
really.
man.
It's kind of the same thing. They kind of references him the same.
I know
thing.
literally zero blue characters or animals' names in this. Like Spider is the only name I could remember. I don't know the names of the main characters.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I thought that was a cool moment. Visually, it was a cool moment. It was kind of like, and it was kind of like a little bit of a redemption for like, it feels weird to say, but like that whale's character arc, like and I felt like
that whale.
He was one of the more interesting characters to me in the whole movie. Honestly, was like Loak and him and like their vibe, but particularly him. Like I just thought like cool.
He
like
he didn't speak. He didn't open his mouth and say horrible dialogue, so you didn't ever have to roll your eyes at it.
I mean, and he looked really cool, and his body language and actions were like enough for you to get like what he's thinking and what's going on. And when he gets involved in the fray and like starts kind of kicks the battle off, and he's just on there like just wrecking everything. Like I like that. That brought a smile to my face.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and as far as that comment's concerned, this suffers from a little bit of like what Star Wars suffers from. Like, it's cool as shit, dialogue's awful. Like,
yeah, I can see that. I can see that comparison for sure. Before we move on to kind of the bad stuff, just because we're on the visuals, and just to give them like, what is there one shot or one scene in particular that you remember being like, oh my god, like?
I think just kind of the first, like when they were all learning how to ride those like super cool like flying fish things that they had they would bond with. Is that what they call it?
Mm-hmm.
Just all of that, and like the first time going underwater with like the reef people and stuff, and then just like learning all of that. I thought that was amazing. And like that's kind of what I'm talking about, where like I just want to look like that middle part. Like this movie is clearly kind of split into three distinct parts.
Mm-hmm.
And that middle part of the movie is just visually, I just want to look at it. Like there's so many shots that would just make like amazing posters or like screensavers or whatever. But that was the first time in any Avatar movie where I've actually had like kind of felt that like jaw dropping, holy shit, look at this feeling that a lot of people had with the first one.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it was at a certain point in that middle section when they're just kind of learning how to do everything. I think it's towards the end. Like we've gotten these big montages. It's all like in the bright sunlight with the water, and it looks amazing. But then there's a scene or two that take place like when the sun is setting, and they're just kind of like hanging out in the lagoon on their little creatures, and like it just looked so incredible. Like just the colors and just everything about like that scene and that like shot was just like, oh my goodness, like this place looks even cooler like as the sun goes down than it does during the day. Like, oh my god. How about you, Adam?
I don't know if I can pick one because I'm just trying to go over.
Was it when the giant colonizing things landed and just like nuked everything underneath them in like an 8 square mile radius?
Yeah. It's like, oh, we're just going to build a settlement here in the middle of the forest. And look, it's all gone now. Yeah, I think it's the lighting is the lighting above and below water is probably just the most impressive bit, because water is always the hardest thing to render or get right. Like in the history of look at like movies, the animated movies, look at like video games, like it never quite looks real. And when somebody does it right, you're like, wow, like that actually makes sense, because it's all unpredictable. It's water, flows whatever way it wants. So the lighting,
water.
Yeah, the lighting aspects above and below water, I think, are just the most impressive, because it does change the color of everything else, and like the hue and the richness of everything. And I just think some of that stuff is that hasn't happened before. No one's been able to actually pull it off and make it look believable for 90 minutes, let alone 3 hours. So
yeah.
All right. Now let's pivot to the other part of making a movie, which is story and characters and plot
and writing stuff and having not a strength of James Cameron's.
Yeah.
And I mean, first off, I really didn't like how much Neytiri was kind of sidelined in this for the most part. I mean, she's like in the fight at the end, but other than that, she's just like kind of at home and like being a mom.
Yeah.
Which like is fine that's there, but I like her. She was, I think, the best character in the first movie, and she just felt like she wasn't nearly as big of a driving force behind like decisions and what was going on in this movie. So I found that disappointing, but really just kind of like bad like expository dialogue.
Yep.
Very heavy in that regard, and then like there are some things that I'd kind of forgotten. Not really, but like this is setting up other movies, and then there are some things that kind of get mentioned and never come back. And like I found that very frustrating.
Like what?
Well, like Sigourney Weaver's character just like passes out in the forest when they get captured at the beginning, and she's like falls asleep, and then they wake her up. She's like, "Oh, did I do that again?" And then they never like. Yeah, she has that weird seizure thing when she's like linking up to the life.
Don't do it again.
That's not the same thing.
No.
And they just like never go back to it or bring it up again in any way. And I was like, oh, I guess we like that feels like a weird thing to have like that be one of the things that you're never going to bring up again.
I feel like that was supposed to connect with the weird seizure she has and the connection to
I think
Awa.
it's supposed to as well. I think it's supposed to be like a mystery that we still want answers from in 3, but it just kind of felt like a loose thread that should have gotten a little bit more attention towards the end in this one. And then just kind of, the fact that everything that happens with the kids is like super cliche.
So like generic
story-wise, there's nothing unique here at all.
It's so safe. Like the plot is safe. The characters are safe. Like the characters are like the personalities of the kids are just like so generic. Like the oldest son is just good and righteous and brave, and he's just good. And then the second son is just mischievous and feels out of place. And then there's a little kid who like, oh, he's getting in trouble again. Like it was just like
following along with his brothers.
And like, never another layer underneath that. I also hated that they brought back so many of the characters from the first one with the whole like now they're like all the villains are just the same villains from the first one. And Sigourney Weaver's, daughter that she had with the planet is played by Sigourney Weaver with a
cool
voice.
I actually like that.
So he sounds like this. That took me out of it like every time she spoke. I hated that decision to have Sigourney Weaver play her teenage like there's so many great actors out there. There's so much young talent out there, and they couldn't just give the role to a new instead they're like, no, she can play a 15-year-old. We'll pitch her voice up a little bit, like it'll be fine. And it just felt like so many. The only like new characters are the kids, and then Tony Soprano's wife for like an hour as a bad, but then we never see her again.
That was something I wanted to bring up because honestly, I think the thing that bugged me the most was so they kind of bring the old bad guys back as blue people.
Now, so convenient
and blend in. And they're sending them after Jake, which makes some tactical sense. They're like, he knows all of our stuff. He's the one they're rallying behind. If we kill him, then they'll kind of scatter. But then he just like voluntarily leaves.
Yeah.
And they're still after him. Like he's literally not fighting anymore. What happened to all the forest people? Are they still attacking that spot? No clue.
Yeah.
Why do they care that like it would have made sense if Tony Soprano's wife had said like, he's gone. We don't, like, you did your job. We don't need to kill him now. But then the fact that they killed those guys, like, then it just turns into a revenge, like an off the grid against revenge thing. And that would have made sense to me. But why did the entire army still feel the need to kill that one guy?
Yeah, he's like, he went 400 miles to the east. It's like, well, we better go track him down. It's like, I don't know. Sounds like he solved the problem for you.
They don't explain at all how, like, and this is one of the dumb things from the first one that like I know we want to complain about how like bad the writing is, but remember in the first one, the ore they're after is called unobtainium.
Oh yeah,
one of the dumbest decisions you ever could have made. And now they didn't explain this at all, but they transitioned to being like, we don't give a shit about that anymore. We're going to the whale,
the brain goo
from their brain. This is now the most important thing, which is the exact same line they use in the first one from the unobtainium. Like, this is the most powerful thing on the planet. We're gonna get the shit out of it and just destroy this planet for this one thing. And it's like,
I'm gonna jump on a little bit of a soapbox here. That was so dumb for so many reasons. Okay, first off, in the first movie, they established that it takes 6 years to get to Pandora. Okay, 6 years they've been traveling through space. Then we see them land, and it jumps to 1 year later. Okay, 1 year later. All right, in that 1 year, they have done scientific experiments on the whales, on their brains, to determine that their goo that is in the brain, not only have they figured out how to kill the whales, harvest the whales, scientifically study the whales, they have extracted the goo, and they have engaged the goo in clinical trials so they know that it stops human aging completely. And this entire side industry has completely replaced the unobtainium industry, and now this industry has flourished and is like getting billions of poured in 1 year. Like, how do they know that it stops aging completely? The soonest they could have possibly discovered it was like 10 months ago. And they just know that, oh yeah, it completely stops it forever. It completely, like, and you know, and all the trials that we sent back to Earth, they're going to get there in like 5 years, and then they're going to know that it totally works. Like, that didn't make any sense to me, that they're just like set up this whole new, they could have just been like, yeah, unobtainium is still the most valuable precious metal in the universe. That's enough reason for them to come back. Like, capitalism isn't like.
And they also had like, now we got to find a new spot for the human race to be too, because we fucked up Earth, so we're just gonna colonize this planet because it's close enough. They added that little bit into
the water people, which also made no sense, into like how they've been out in the ocean doing this whale stuff the whole time, and they've never encountered, like, the reef people don't know what's going on. They've never encountered each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's all very, like, at best convenient.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at worst, just like an outright massive plot hole that, like, I don't know. I'm sure the apologists will say, like, no, this is just going to set up something for 3, or like, we'll get an answer to that late. But like, it has to still make sense.
It does. Well, this is where I think, like, being a fan of the series will, like, you'll conflict with these things that are just incongruous with the established universe already.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just like, yeah, it's a movie about space blue people. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, to a certain level, that's the take most people will take on it. And obviously we're in the minority of, like, you can't have glaring plot holes like this and make it like $1 billion movie. Like,
after 13 years, After 13 years, I just expected it to be put together a little better. I just expected, even with the whale thing, like, remember there's the scene where she's leading, Edie Falco is leading him kind of around, showing him like how we built this stuff so fast. Here's these robots that build things really quick.
Yeah.
She never once mentions, oh, and by the way, we're like really into like the oceans now. Like, all you've ever seen is us in the forest trying to extract this ore, but now we have a new thing where we're going out into the water. Like, it seems like the humans had no interest in the water at all, and then 2 hours into the movie, they're like, oh, by the way, this is the thing that we're pursuing. It's this thing that stops aging. And I was just like, why? Like, what? Like,
it was a bad choice to bring that shit in, because, like,
and then also,
like, oh, there's more unobtainium over here.
Yeah, and then you got like the smarmy sea captain, and then the dude from Flight of the Conchords as like kind of comic relief, but not really. Yeah,
it was Jamaican. When he showed up, I audibly laughed. I was like, oh,
right, and then also, like, okay, so these fishermen, right? This industry's pouring all this money into harvesting this brain goo, right? So they've provided them with like harpooners and all this crazy tech to capture these whales, and then our bad guy comes in and he's just like, hey, I know you guys are like fishermen, but do you want to help me with like an all-out war? Do you just want to become like straight military soldiers? And the harpoonists are like, yeah, oh my God, that's what I signed up for. They're paying me a salary because I know how to harpoon a whale, but I will totally go like to
I'll
war,
harpoon
full
some
metal
blue people.
jacket. Like, yeah, against the blue people. Like, we're mercenaries now. We were fishermen. Now we're mercenaries, and we're really good at, like, oh my God. So dumb.
The fundamental difference, I think, here is the expectation that this was going to be anything but like the most basic shit you've ever seen. Like, I mean, because that's what the first one was. So like expectations were low. It was going to be cool.
Makes more sense than this one does.
Yeah, the framing of the story and the way it's set up makes more sense. The plot just makes more sense. It's classic. Like you discover the world as Jake Sully discovers the world. Yeah. But now in this movie, that perspective isn't the perspective anymore. You're kind of just observing everything. Yeah. And even from like the opening monologue when Jake Sully's talking, and then
opening monologue's trash.
And he calls he's like, but we always thought maybe the sky people will return. It's like, why are you calling them sky people? You were a human. You were a human longer than you've been in Navi. If there's anyone who would just call them humans or people or the military, it's you. And instead he's like, someday the sky people. It's like, okay, Jake. All right. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like there's a lot of stuff that just is like, this is the dumbest thing, but whatever. Like,
and they use some like very anachronistic like slang.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Or like one of the guys just like one of the whatever they're called, the blue people, just like flipped off somebody.
Yeah, the double. Yeah.
Or, like somebody calls somebody a bitch. And I'm like, why are we saying sky people?
One of the kids tells him to like he's a penis head.
And then we're also using like slang. And like I don't know,
and then
the excessive use of the word "bro" in this movie really bothered me.
It's translated for us.
For us, yeah.
Listen, that's I like that they did that just so we don't have to like have like 18 fucking actors learn a fake language and like try to talk about it and then put subtitles on it. They're like, everyone's gonna see it. We don't need to do that shit.
No, I
appreciate that, but.
And also Spider, who is a character that took me a long time to take seriously.
Same.
Really took me like. It's good that he had the father-son arc a little bit, because man, like for the first like 30 minutes he was on screen, I'm like, that guy is ridiculous. He gets the one F-bomb that he just gets to drop right at the end.
What is it again? What's the line?
It's when he's gonna leave it's just when he's gonna leave his dad, and then he can't. He just goes, fuck.
Yeah. An angry scream fuck from like a 16-year-old.
And then later his dad is like, son, like stay with me, and he's gonna leave. And he's like, son, and then he leaves and he's like, Spider. Oh man.
The same criticisms from 1 follow over into 2. The same high points of 1 follow over into 2. It's nearly the same movie. It's just longer.
I'm so not done yet. And then there's also the royalty of the reef people. Like, okay, sweet opportunity, new characters. Like, what are their motivations? Like, let's get some cool reef people. And like, they basically just like, they help out with the initial assault, and then they kind of just like F off for the rest of the battle.
Yeah, they're completely forgotten about.
They barely do
not matter.
They don't matter. They don't even get like a cool showdown.
Yeah,
Kate Winslet, like totally wasted in my opinion. Like I don't know. And then, oh gosh, what else? Oh yeah, just the bro stuff, and then the talking with the whales. That also, it was hard for me to take that seriously. Just something about the way it was done. Like the first couple times that the whale like talks, and we get like the subtitles of what the whale is thinking, it just was like I looked over at Mason and I was just like, okay, the whales are actually talking now. And
we're doing this now. Like,
I will say, I had seen a review where they said there's a talking whale in this movie, so I went in expecting. I was legitimately expecting a whale to like speak English.
Yeah.
For me, it was less than ridiculous.
You're like, how tasteful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, right. So I was expecting a whale to like literally just speak actual human words or sky people words.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't. So for me, at least with that expectation, I was just like, oh, okay, this isn't as dumb as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And also just like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of the communication with the whales and the Navi or whatever, like it could have been done with non-verbal actions and like where the whale's looking and what the whale, like it could have been done, but instead we just get like a shot of the whale, its eyes, and then subtitle. like you're expecting your third child soon. Oh, yes, I am. Yeah. Your baby is beautiful too.
And the whole time
Thank
the
you.
whales just like,
I
Like,
know.
yeah, this right up close.
yeah.
I love the view we get from the whale's eye a couple times too. Like, oh, it's this, but like a fisheye lens, and it's yellow.
Oh
I
yeah,
really love the part where
whale
we have
view. Yeah.
whale cam.
Whale cam.
Whale cam, yeah. It's
I like
yellow
the
and it's a
part
little bit distorted.
where he had to swim into the whale's mouth.
That was cool.
Yeah,
I thought that was. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of bold. And
I thought that was
Again,
cool.
Here's the problem with the movie: is like a lot of it's not good. It just looks cool as fuck, and you're like, God damn it, this is fun. Like it's just,
I know.
Yeah.
that's just
For me,
that's the draw.
and usually, you know me. I mean, I spectacle. I will give it. I will give it a lot of like leverage when deciding on a rating. And for me, most of this movie experience, it was just very frustrating for me because I felt like visually I was enjoying what I was seeing, but I kept waiting for like something to actually pull me into the story. And it was just at every turn, it was like, nope, just generic, safe. You've seen it a million times. Like all the emotional stuff, like very heavy-handed, very just like, and it was just frustrating because yeah, I kept being like, oh, this looks so beautiful. If it can just like reach out and grab me, then like I'll be having a good time. And it just like very rarely got to that point for me. I think there was one review on Letterboxd that said this movie is like dating a person who's 10 out of 10 looks but 4 out of 10 personality. Like,
wrong.
it's,
Not wrong.
like,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It was a lot of disappointment for me. I'll be honest.
Well, I think that would be a good segue into the star ratings. So we will be back in just a few seconds and give you our scores. Great work, Adam.
Thank you.
That was some great coordination right there.
Our viewers.
We're gonna pat ourselves on the back just a little bit. It's something we fail at often.
Regularly. It's
not something that really matters, but we like.
But we care.
It's a personal challenge.
Yeah, it's a personal challenge. That said, star ratings. I'll go first because I'm definitely the highest on this movie that out of the three of us. I'm gonna give this 4 stars, which I know is gonna sound asinine to you guys.
There are 4-star elements of this movie, so
yeah,
there's a lot of 4.5s and 4-star reviews on Letterboxd too, so you're definitely not alone.
Yeah, I like it better than the first one, I think, despite the fact that the runtime is insane and it doesn't do anything special as far as like story is concerned or characters are concerned. We get the same. We spend 20 minutes with all the kids except for one, and guess what? So some of that's not great at all, but I went into this with a lot of hype because of the people I was with, my girlfriend and her brothers. We went and watched the first one right before this to kind of build ourselves back up on the hype. And I think this movie is going to ride a lot of that. I don't think it's going to have the same staying power as the first one, obviously, because it's not the newest, greatest technology and stuff that we have, although it's probably the best looking film I've seen in the last year, probably plus. I just don't think, especially like post-COVID world, I don't think people are going to go re-see this, 6, 7, 8 times like they did the first one. Go see it in 3D 3 times, which is like a $30 ticket or something. So I think that's going to be a little bit different. The numbers aren't going to justify its runtime or how much money is spent on it. I did see a quote that James Cameron said something along. He's like prepared to let this series die after the 3rd movie. Like if it just doesn't make enough money, just like, well, it'll come down to who gives a shit still. So it is what it is. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it looked great, and there was some stuff I didn't particularly care for. The meeting of the whale and all that stuff was just takes a little bit too long. And but overall, I wouldn't say it's like paced terribly. It's just a slow story because they spend so much time world building with every single aspect that they give you, so that it sort of pays off in the end or will pay off in future movies. So if I watch this in another year after not having seen it, after not rewatching it, I might drop it down and go, okay, these are true terrible flaws, and the impressiveness of the visuals no longer do it for me. But we'll see what happens when that day comes. But for now, it's a 4-star rating for me.
All right.
Over to Nate.
I can go next because I think we can just go down the ladder here.
Yep.
I'm going to give this 3 stars, which I mostly just felt the need to do for 2 reasons. One is that I gave the first one a 2.5, and I did like this better.
Okay.
And mostly it's just because there are parts that I do want to revisit. Basically, a lot of the visual exploration stuff with when they're being introduced to the reef people. And then like the first 30-ish minutes of that climactic battle, I think are really fun. So it's weird because I basically look at this as like a 2 script, and like the visuals are like a 4.5 or a 5. And normally they don't pull that much weight with me, but there's just something about looking at all these undersea creatures and the way that the beginnings and like the bulk of that battle worked out, that I just really enjoyed kind of staring at that. So, I mean, if I think I'm going to revisit parts of it eventually, then it's definitely better than the first one. So 0.5 star above Avatar 1. So 3 stars.
All right. Take us home, Dylan.
All right. Over to me. I'm giving this a 2.
Okay.
I think this movie is not good. And
I'm not really going to disagree with you very much at all. I just
me either.
I
mean, like a lot of movies is who you see it with and how you feel when it happens, right?
So, I'm docking it points for the fact that it took 13 years and this is what we got. I just feel like we're living in the golden age of TV and an age of really fascinating storytelling. And the fact that at no point over the last 13 years he could have thrown, a gajillion dollars at one of the up-and-coming writers at HBO or an A24 indie screenwriter. I mean, he couldn't have brought in anyone to smooth this story out and actually give it some like emotional like depth and like pull me in. They couldn't have 13 years. They couldn't have come up with a new villain. They just had to recycle the old ones. They couldn't. Like, it just felt like so much of just like, oh, well, like safe and kind of lazy. Some of the editing also felt weird to me. Like we get the long montage of Loak when he's first like bonding with his whale. Then he goes back to like the village. He's like, hey guys, I met this cool whale. And they're like, nah, he's a killer. And he's like, no, he's not. And they're like, you're crazy, man. And he's like, oh, whatever. And he goes back out there. And then we get another montage of him bonding with the whale. Like it was like, it just felt like, why? Like, wait, we're going back for montage 2 with only what? Like, it was just a lot of weird choices where I just felt like at certain points it's like he lingered way too long on like, well, I'm just having fun in this new world, and hey, look at these kids, they're like playing on top of this way, and then but there wasn't enough like weight, and then even the last battle, like I couldn't tell when it started if it was actually going to be the climactic battle or if it was just going to be like the inciting incident that leads to another battle, because it just didn't feel like the stakes, like I didn't really get a good idea of like, okay, so that ship, that whaling ship is actually like a military fortress, like that is like the thing that needs to be taken out. Like I just felt like kind of like with like
the bomber in the first one.
Yeah, or like with Black Panther. Like what, like I feel like with that boat that's supposed to be like the unsinkable boat, but they don't do a good enough setting it up, and then like the scale of it I was never fully, I couldn't actually conceptualize. Yeah, just a lot of disappointment for me. And just when I walked out of the theater, I felt like it was a bummer. I don't know. And then even like towards the end, okay, so the oldest son dies, and that's going to be like the big thing that happens in this movie to set up the future. But like the main bad guy doesn't even kill the son. It's like a random mercenary bullet that we don't even see. Like it's so impersonal. It's just so like random, it feels like I don't know, even like his death and how that happened just didn't seem as like impactful as it could have been. And yeah, couldn't get over the Sigourney Weaver thing. There was just a lot of decisions that he made that I wasn't, I don't know, it took me out of it. The script and the characters took me out of it instead of pulling me in, and I wanted to go in because visually it was incredible, but just didn't do it for me. So I'm going to give this a 2 stars. It's not good. And then just before we go, I would be remiss. Just a reminder, what did both of you give Nope? Adam, you gave it like a 2.5 or a 3?
I gave it a 2.5, yeah.
And Nate, what'd you give it?
I gave it 2.5, which I strongly stand by.
And both.
You're also the only person who's rewatched it.
Both of you think that this movie is that much better than Nope. It just hurts my soul. If I had the little spirit, my spirit tree is dying because of that, and it just makes me sad.
I'm gonna look up what I gave Nope. I hope it's worse.
I
than
mean,
what you think.
if you want to be on the wrong side of history, go right ahead. You can be a stand for Avatar 2 and
I gave it a 2.5.
Totally overlook a Jordan Peele, well thought out, well constructed, also a spectacle. I will derail this whole podcast. I just needed a reminder, and that's okay. We're all different. It's been a while since I've been really low.
I'm sure I said on that episode that like maybe I just didn't get it. You don't always understand everything you see right away.
It's fun for me. It's fun for me to be on the low end of a movie that is more spectacle, like style over substance, because I feel like normally I'm higher on style.
For sure. We've very much like switched places here. And I don't disagree with anything you said. If I rewatch, there are just parts that I would like to revisit. And I liked it better than the first. I mean, I could have gone both with 2.5s and kind of left it as just like a little bit higher of a 2.5. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, I stand by my Nope score, and this one will only ever possibly go down. Let me There is no way I'm going to rewatch any parts of this and have it like blow my mind enough to be like, wait, this is actually amazing.
Yeah. What you see is what you get. The expectations I think is the difference here, and you know, being able to, again, I think on this podcast I'm the one who's like, I will turn off my brain and watch trash and be like, that was great, more than either of you do. Well, so this is a perfect example of that. It's exactly what American audiences want. It's spectacle, it's cool looking shit, and it doesn't require much else.
And that leads me to my final point of the day, which is I have a lot of 4.5 and 5-star movies. Maybe not a lot, but there are 4.5 and 5-star movies that I do not intend to ever watch again. And then there's movies like this that I'm giving a 2-star, but I'll probably watch it again at some point. Just it's so visually crazy. It seems like the type of thing that once it's on streaming, like it'll get put on like a Thursday night.
Also, you can just like skip ahead to like some of the stuff you want to see.
Let's get right to the reef. Right to the reef.
Kids fight each other for 25 minutes and be like, look, they don't get along. Got it. Move forward.
Yeah.
They're bullying the new kids? How strange.
I didn't see that coming at all. Wait, the older brother defended the younger brother? What? But then the younger brother couldn't help himself?
Oh, shit. The two princes are friends now.
All right. Well, this was fun.
All right, one more thing.
Can't let it die.
Much like the movie itself, it's going on far too long.
Multiple points in this movie. I was sitting there next to my girlfriend watching it, and we like something would happen, and we'd either like shoot each other or look and be like, all right, or like visually, she at one point when they like, oh, they go back to do the thing that they shouldn't be doing yet again. Yeah. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, how many times in the same movie can you make the same fucking mistake? Which is only saved by Took at the end being like, I can't believe I'm tied up again. Which you're like, haha, don't fucking say it.
Yeah.
Something else.
I agree. I went with our friend Mason, and a lot of like sideways glances at just certain lines that just hit like a lead balloon, and just other things are just like, okay, all right, James.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Well,
Excellent.
we said 20 minutes. It's 42. Who cares?
Like I said.
Dylan had a solid like 8-minute rant there, so I think it was worth it.
That's what this is about. So
absolutely. Yes. And then I believe it's my turn to put a wrap on the show.
It is.
All right. Dabba dee, dabba die.